Welcome to today's video session. In today's video session, we're going to deal about respiration in plants. So respiration is very basic general phenomenon that has to occur for the sustainability of life. Each and every organisms do respire. Respiration is a catabolic process, we call it as. Catabolic means breaking down or degradation. Whereas on the other hand, anabolic means building up or biosynthesis. Photosynthesis is called as anabolic process. Respiration is called as catabolic process because here large complex molecule is broken down into simpler molecules. Hence, since degradation or breaking down is occurring over here, we call them as catabolic process. It is also called as biological oxidation. It is oxidation process and it is occurring in all living organisms, hence biological oxidative process. So if you want the definition of respiration, respiration is a biological catabolic process where the large complex molecules such as carbohydrates or proteins or fatty acids is broken down or is oxidized into simpler compounds like carbon dioxide and water with the release of energy. So that energy is very important. We everyday consume food in the form of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids or fats. So these complex, these are very complex molecules, macromolecules we call them as. It is broken down into simpler forms, and in this process, the energy is released. This energy is utilized for various metabolic processes. This entire physical or biological process is called as respiration. Usually, there will be confusion between respiration and breathing. Breathing is nothing but inhalation and exhalation, intake of oxygen and liberating carbon dioxide. Only part of this is called as breathing. So, breathing is a part of respiration. So, respiration is at a cellular level, cellular degradation, whereas breathing is a physical phenomenon, exhalation and inhalation. So, breathing is taken place only by the living organism like human beings, etc. Plants do not breathe, while respiration is a universal phenomenon of all the living organism. So, that is about the definition. So, in fact, respiration is this word has been from a Greek word respire, which means to breathe, but it is a synonymous or it can call it as a misnomer. Breathing is different and respiration is different. Breathing is a process under respiration. So you have to keep should be clear with that. Next is respiratory substrates. So these complex molecules that I mentioned, let it be carbohydrates or proteins or fatty acids, that is broken down into simpler forms. These which gets oxidized. These complex molecules which are oxidized, or these complex molecule which is utilized in respiration is called as respiratory substrates. Respiratory substrates are broadly categorized into three forms: carbohydrates, that is entire rice, glucose, fructose, sucrose, everything; proteins or amino acids; and fats or lipids. Under that we have glycerol and triglycerides, fatty acids, etc. So broadly they are categorized into carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So those respiration that involves breaking down of carbohydrates and lipids is called as floating respiration. So those respiration which involves carbohydrates and lipids as respiratory substrates are called as floating respiration. In absence of carbohydrates and lipids, proteins are utilized. Only in the absence of carbohydrates and proteins, and I'm sorry, only in the absence of carbohydrates and lipids, proteins are utilized. Such type of respiration is called as protoplasmic respiration. So protoplasmic respiration is a type of respiration where proteins are the respiratory substrates. Protein are oxidized or proteins are broken down. So these are two types of respiration. One is the floating respiration, which utilizes carbohydrates and lipids. The other thing is your protoplasmic respiration that involves proteins. After this, we come for another important term called as respiratory quotient or RQ. Respiratory quotient is also denoted as RQ. So respiratory quotient is a ratio between the volume of carbon dioxide evolved and volume of oxygen taken in. So we know that respiration, it involves the liberation of carbon dioxide and the intake of oxygen. So for 1 gram of plant tissue or 1 gram of tissue under standard conditions such as standard temperature 273 Kelvin and standard pressure 1 bar atmosphere, under standard conditions and 1 gram of living tissue, the ratio of the carbon dioxide evolved to the carbon dioxide taken in is called as respiratory quotient or RQ. This respiratory quotient is a very important term. It actually measures the growth or measures the capacity of the respiration, how extent the respiration has taken place, how far respiration has taken place. It measures the respiration. If you take the respiratory quotient for proteins or a respiratory quotient for proteins, it is greater than 1. So that means whenever you take a proteinaceous food, the respiration occurs so fast and more amount of energy is liberated. That's why when you eat sprouts, cereals, all the leguminous things, the whole day you'll feel active. But on the other hand, the respiratory quotient for fats or lipids is less than 1. When you take fat content or high butter foods or ghee foods, oily items, when you take, you feel the entire day as lethargic, lazy, you don't feel like doing any work because respiration is very slow and more amount of energy is not liberated. That's why you feel lethargic, lazy. And respiratory quotient for carbohydrates is unity. It's 1 amount of oxygen taken in, entire thing, amount of oxygen taken in and amount of carbon dioxide given out is equal. If it takes 10 mole of oxygen, it gives out 10 mole of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide for carbohydrates, respiratory quotient is 1 or unity. And respiratory quotient of succulent plants. Succulent plants or xerophytic plants like opuntia and other plants and all. For that, respiratory quotient is 0. That means there is no liberation of carbon dioxide at all. Since the xerophytic plants, the stomatal opening occurs at night and very little amount of carbon dioxide is evolved. That little amount of carbon dioxide is again taken in photosynthesis process. So there is no net gain of carbon dioxide that is to be liberated into the atmosphere. There is no liberation of carbon dioxide. Hence, the respiratory quotient for succulent plants are 0. So RQ, it is very important. It is nothing but just the ratio of carbon dioxide given out and oxygen taken in by any living tissue at standard condition. Respiratory quotient for carbohydrates is unity or 1. For proteins, more than 1. For lipids, less than 1. Lipids or fats, less than 1. For succulent plants, it is 0. So these are the very important introductory part of respiration that you should know before entering into the main mechanism of respiration. Next, types of respiration. So that a floating type and protoplasmic type, they are just the basic type. Other than that, the respiration broadly can be categorized into 2 things: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, it occurs in the presence of atmospheric oxygen. In anaerobic, an means absent. Anaerobic respiration, it is occurs in the absence of atmospheric oxygen. Oxygen is not needed for anaerobic respiration. For aerobic respiration, oxygen is needed. So aerobic respiration, the definition for aerobic respiration, it is a complete breakdown or complete degradation of the organic molecules into simpler forms with the release of carbon dioxide, water and enormous amount of energy in presence of atmospheric oxygen. Anaerobic respiration, it is partial degradation or partial breakdown which releases alcohol and other organic acids in the absence of oxygen. So this is if you see the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, it requires oxygen. Anaerobic respiration does not require oxygen. Aerobic respiration, there is complete degradation or complete breakdown of organic molecules. Here there is partial degradation. The entire carbohydrates or complex inorganic molecules are not broken down. There is partial breaking down or partial degradation. As a result, very less amount of energy is released. In aerobic respiration, enormous amount of energy is released. 38 molecules of ATP is released in aerobic respiration. Only 2 molecules is released in case of anaerobic respiration. And aerobic respiration, it occurs in all plants and all living organisms. Here it occurs in very less amount of organisms like microorganisms, bacteria, yeast, and certain animal tissues it occurs. Like if you see anaerobic respiration, when it occurs in animal tissues also. When humans do strenuous exercise, when they keep on doing exercise for a long amount of time, they have the muscle ache. That is because of anaerobic respiration. Oxygen is not given for all the tissues there. Oxygen is cut off. Because of the exercise they do, the oxygen is cut off at the muscle region and partial degradation takes place, which results in the formation of lactic acid. Lactic acid is deposited. As a result, you get the muscle ache or muscle catches you get. Then later when the oxygen supply is normal, it gets broken down. So when irregular exercise, like you do after some 6 months or 1 year, when you do exercise, when you do continuous exercise, this won't happen. When you do once in a year or twice in a year, for when you do very long or strenuous exercise for a long time, this occurs. Anaerobic respiration occurs. That is reason for a muscle aches and all. And one more difference is anaerobic respiration products are toxic to plants, whereas aerobic respiration, they are not toxic to plants. And anaerobic respiration, it occurs in cytoplasm or cytosol, which is nothing but the fluid matrix of the cell, whereas in aerobic respiration occurs in two organelles, cytoplasm and mitochondria. It occurs in only these two places. So this is the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. If you are attempting any examination, university or pre-university examination, this difference is very important question. Differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. They can be asked for 5 marks or 6 markers, whereas the respiratory substrates, definition, RQ and all can be asked for 2 marks. It's very important in exam point of view. Next, what is the significance of respiration? So high enormous amount of energy is liberated, as I said, in case of aerobic respiration. Hence, this energy is utilized for various metabolic processes and physiological processes like photosynthesis, production of food, for the growth of the plant, for the reproduction of the plant, for various activities it is used. And anaerobic respiration, as I said you, alcohol is produced and lactic acid is produced. So this fermentation is a process where alcohol is produced in the absence of oxygen. So ethyl alcohol is produced. So it is a very important process, industrially important in distilleries and all, where they produce alcohol. This anaerobic respiration is very important for them. And the carbon dioxide is evolved out, as I said you. By this evolution of carbon dioxide, there is carbon balance in the atmosphere. There is equilibrium of carbon cycle in the atmosphere. And the potential energy is converted to kinetic energy. Potential energy is nothing but the stored energy. With the stored energy, stored energy and kinetic energy is usable energy. So the stored energy cannot be utilized for metabolic processes, for growth, for reproduction and all. This has to be converted into utilizable energy. So potential energy is converted to kinetic energy. And the insoluble food, these carbohydrates and all complex, they are very complex macromolecules. They are insoluble. So they should be converted to soluble micromolecules, and that is the final product is carbon dioxide, water and energy rich molecules. And during this respiration, there are various intermediate compounds that are liberated. These intermediate compounds are key substrates for other metabolic pathways. Let it be photosynthetic cycle or any other cycle, reproductive phase, for open gene locking, for opening of the genes, for inducing flower, inducing fruiting. These intermediate compounds are very important for those metabolic activities. So these are the significance of respiration. I'm just dealing with plants. So this is very important significance. This also again can be asked for 5-marker questions. Next are the factors that are responsible for respiration. What and all are the criteria, what and all are the conditions favorable for respiration and are not favorable for respiration. So factors, this is again a 6-marker question. So what are the factors of involved in respiration? There are factors can be broadly classified into external factors, that is like physical factors and abiotic and abiotic factors, and internal factors, that is within the plants. If you see internal factors, the protoplasmic content, the age of the plant, the activity of the cell are very important. In young plants, the rate of respiration is very high. Similarly, the meristematic cells. Meristematic cells are those cells that undergo repeated divisions. So, for the growth of the cell, energy is required. For that, respiration is required. Hence, at very young plant and meristematic cells, the rate of respiration is very high, and in the older plants, the respiration is very low. Next is your respiratory substrate and respiratory enzymes. So if there is more respiratory substrates and more respiratory enzyme, it is favorable. The rate of respiration will be high. If there are less substrate and less enzyme, there will be less rate of respiration. These are the internal factors, protoplasmic contents and as well as the respiratory substrates and respiratory enzymes. What are the external factors? External factors like temperature. Temperature is very important criteria for respiration to occur. For every rise in 10 degrees Celsius of temperature, the respiration doubles. This rule is called as Van 't Hoff's rule. So this Van 't Hoff scientist did various experiments and he gave a law called as Van 't Hoff's law. According to this law, he says that for every rise in 10 degrees Celsius, the rate of respiration doubles. And this occurs only up to a certain limit. It occurs only up to 45 degrees Celsius. What happens above 45 degrees Celsius? As the temperature increases, denature of enzymes takes place. Enzymes are proteinaceous substance. They have secondary and tertiary level of organization. As the temperature increases, the disulfide bonds and the peptide bonds in the protein chain gets broken down and the entire structure gets disorganized. This is called as denaturation. So denaturation of respiratory enzymes occurs and the respiration declines. In low temperature also the respiration declines, so the rate of respiration is low. So the optimum temperature is 30 degrees Celsius. At 30 degrees Celsius you can see the major rate of respiration, a very high rate of respiration taking place. That is in case of temperature. Water. Water is another important criteria for respiration to take place. That's the reason when you want, as soon as when you sow a dry seed into a pot, you won't find plants coming out. Sprouting doesn't take place. Only when you pour water, the energy is liberated by the process respiration and sprouting takes place and the seedling germination takes place. That's the reason all your proteins, leguminous seeds and all, they soak in water for 24 hours and then they're tight in a tight cloth, wet cloth they tight, so that sprouting takes place. In kitchen and all you can see this sprouting for various dishes and all, you use sprouting, right? It should be soaked in water or it should be tied in a wet cloth because water is very essential for the activation of these respiratory enzymes. They are active only in the hydrated medium, so it's very important. So water, if water is there, respiration takes place. Next is the oxygen concentration. If more amount of oxygen is there, aerobic respiration favors. If less amount of oxygen is there, anaerobic respiration favors. Next is carbon dioxide concentration. Carbon dioxide is the final product. So if the carbon dioxide concentration is more, it decreases the rate of respiration. It decreases the rate of respiration. This is with regard to oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration. And light. Light is also physical stimulus that is needed. More the light, more the respiration. So if the light intensity is more, the rate of respiration is also more amount of energy is liberated. Injury. Whenever there is injury or mechanical stress, water stress, heat stress or any disturbances, the rate of respiration is more. Energy is released more. The growth is more to cover that injury, to heal that wound. Respiration is more. So whenever there is mechanical injury or physical injury or any wound, the rate of respiration is more. So these and all are the factors responsible for rate of respiration, which is very important in exam point of view. Then when we are coming back to the last part of this video, that is a mechanism of respiration. How does respiration takes place? What and all are the steps involved? So it is very detailed thing. I have clubbed together and I have given you as a flow chart. Each thing can be taken and it can be explained in a half an hour video, so that will be done later. So whatever food we take, it is nothing but proteins, carbohydrates, fats or lipids. So when you take the carbohydrates, that is your rice, potatoes, all these are carbohydrates, the bulk food that we take. is the carbohydrates, wheat, not a carbohydrates. So this carbohydrates is in the form of glucose. In plants, what happens? So the carbohydrates in the form of glucose. This cycle, in a way, it holds good for animals also. It's not only for plants. Both are almost only certain steps are changes here, animals and plants. In carbohydrates, the glucose is the end product of photosynthesis, or the food that is prepared by the plants. The end product is glucose. So that has to be broken down for the release of energy. So the glucose is converted into pyruvic acid by the process called as glycolysis. That is the first important process occurring in case of respiration. The carbohydrates in the form of glucose is converted to pyruvic acid by the process called as glycolysis. It occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell. So this is the first step where pyruvic acid is liberated. This pyruvic acid is then converted to acetyl coenzyme A by the process called as oxidative decarboxylation. Oxidation occurs. Decarboxylation, D means removal, carboxylation, removal of carbon dioxide takes place. By the process called as oxidative decarboxylation, the pyruvic acid that is formed by the glycolysis is converted to acetyl coenzyme A. This acetyl coenzyme A, it enters into the Krebs cycle or TCS cycle, which is very important cycle. So this acetyl coenzyme A enters into the Krebs cycle. It is a cyclic process. So as and when the glucose is being liberated, pyruvic acid is formed. From pyruvic acid, acetyl coenzyme A is formed, and this cyclic process, and this occurs in mitochondria. Only the first step, glycolysis, occurs in cytoplasm. All steps occurs in mitochondria. So the pyruvic acid is converted to acetyl coenzyme A. The acetyl coenzyme A enters into Krebs cycle. As a result of Krebs cycle, you get energy-rich molecules such as ATP, NADPH2 and FADP. Flavosine adenosine diphosphate, nicotinamide diphosphate is liberated. These all are energy-rich molecules. So as and when the Krebs cycle is occurring, the byproducts are ATP, NADP, FADP. These are released. Now what happens is, next the last step is electron transport and oxidative phosphorylation. So the NADPH2 and FADP are released. They release electrons. These electrons are carried by electron transport system. So these electrons that are liberated by this NADPH2 and FADP, they are carried by electron transport system, and finally the electron is taken by the oxygen to form water. So finally the electron that are released is taken by the oxygen to form water. So during this transportation of electron, energy is released, enormous energy is liberated. Energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. So it has to be converted from one form to other form. There is movement of electrons, so that energy is liberated. That energy is captured by an enzyme called as ATP synthase. This ATP synthase is an enzyme that what happens, that captures the energy and it converts adenosine diphosphate into adenosine triphosphate with the help of inorganic phosphate. Adenosine di means 2. It converts into adenosine tri means 3. So it is shortage of one phosphate. Adenosine diphosphate converts to adenosine triphosphate. There is shortage of one phosphate. Hence, it takes an inorganic phosphate molecule. It combines this. This process is called as phosphorylation. Phosphorylation means addition of inorganic phosphate to adenosine diphosphate with the amount of energy that is released over here. So to form adenosine triphosphate, this is oxidative process. Loss of electrons is oxidation. Here oxidation occurring and here phosphorylation occurring. Hence this step is called as oxidative phosphorylation. And this transport of electron, hence it is called as electron transport and oxidative phosphorylation. So by the process of which you get 38 molecules of ATP. When one molecule of glucose undergoes respiration, 38 molecules of ATP is liberated. So quickly I'll go through this. Carbohydrates, it undergoes glycolysis to form pyruvic acid. It occurs in cytoplasm. Pyruvic acid is converted to acetyl coenzyme A by the process called as oxidative decarboxylation. That is the second step. And it occurs in mitochondria. This acetyl coenzyme A enters into Krebs cycle. That is the third step. It occurs in mitochondria. As a result, ATP, NADPH2, FADP are released, and carbon dioxide is evolved out as byproduct. This later, the fourth and the final step in the respiration is electron transport and oxidative phosphorylation, where ADP molecules are converted to ATP molecules and the water is liberated. So the byproducts of respiration are carbon dioxide, which is liberated or evolved out, water and ATP molecule, or ATP is energy rich. Hence, that's the reason these all steps are occurring in mitochondria. Hence, that's the reason mitochondria is called as kitchen house of the cell, where major food is prepared. That is nothing but energy, or it is called as energy currency, or energy rich molecule, energy storehouse. It is also called as mitochondria because energy is produced here. This is in case of carbohydrates. If you take proteins, what happens? Protoplasmic respiration. The proteins are converted to amino acids. Proteins are nothing but amino acids, right? So amino acids may get broken down into three forms. Either it may get broken down to alanine. If it gets broken down to alanine, the alanine is then converted to pyruvic acid, and this cycle occurs. If amino acids are broken down until alpha-ketoglutarate acid, this alpha-ketoglutarate acid gets converted to acetyl coenzyme A, and again it enters Krebs cycle. Or it may get converted to aspartic acid and directly it may enter into Krebs cycle. So this is in case of proteins. It may get either alanine, alpha-ketoglutarate acid, or aspartic acid, which again it forms the main branch and it gives the same products. In case of fats, if you consume fats, how does breaking down of fats takes place? Fats are classified two. So when we come in case of fats, how does fat gets respired or broken down? Fats we can classify into two types, glycerol and fatty acids. So if it is in form of glycerol, it directly undergoes site glycolysis and same process occurs. If it is in the form of fatty acid, it undergoes beta oxidation pathway and it gets converted to acetyl coenzyme A, that is involved in Krebs cycle, and ATP is formed. If it is in form of fatty acids, and there is also an alternative pathway called as glyoxylate pathway. It is seen only in seeds. What happens? It is a deviation from Krebs cycle. Same, the fatty acid undergoes beta oxidation. The end product of beta oxidation is acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A, instead of entering into Krebs cycle, it enters glyoxylate pathway. This is a separate pathway and this is dealt in a separate video. Please do watch that video for more information, and it is more clinically significant and very important in case of exam point of view. Please do that. Please do watch that video. So fatty acid, it may either it may undergo beta oxidation pathway and acetyl coenzyme A, Krebs cycle ATP, or glyoxylate pathway. That is in case of fats. So whatsoever may be the substrate, proteins or carbohydrates or fat, the end product is the ATP molecule, water, and carbon dioxide is liberated or evolved out. So one molecule of glucose gives rise to 38 molecules of ATP. This is in case of aerobic respiration. What in case of anaerobic respiration? It is very simple when compared to this. There is nothing much step and all here. In anaerobic respiration, what happens? Till pyruvic acid is the same. Whether oxygen is there or not, till pyruvic acid it occurs respiration. If oxygen is plenty, it undergoes aerobic respiration, Krebs cycle and all. If oxygen is limited, if oxygen supply is cut off, or in the absence of oxygen, pyruvic acid undergoes anaerobic respiration. So pyruvic acid undergoes anaerobic respiration. That pyruvic acid is converted into a lactic acid or ethanol. Ethyl alcohol is also called as ethanol, with the liberation of carbon dioxide and 2 molecules of ATP. Carbon dioxide is also evolved over there. So if pyruvic acid is giving rise to lactic acid, that's what occurs in case of your lactic acid. How the curdling of milk takes place? By anaerobic respiration of LAB, lactic acid bacillus bacterium. It curdling takes place. The milk is converted to curd as a result of anaerobic respiration. And there's another biological process called as fermentation. Fermentation is also a type of anaerobic respiration, where instead of lactic acid you get ethanol. Lactic acid is further broken down into ethanol or ethyl alcohol, which is very industrially important in distilleries and all. Alcohol manufacturing is done over here. Fermentation takes place, and anaerobic respiration, even in the preparation of your idli batter, dosa batter, and all, fermentation takes place, and carbon dioxide is liberated out. So this is the complete respiration in case of plants. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, which is very important for the sustainability of the life. For life to develop, respiration is very important. Thank you for your patience watching of this video. If you like this video, please do like, subscribe to my channel, and please put your comments on suggestions or whichever videos you want, whichever topics to be covered, or any suggestions to improve the video. You can please post the comments over there, and subscribe to my channel, like this video, and also do share with your friends and other groups. Thank you.